Good evening, everyone, and thanks for attending tonight. I hear we have about 30 people that are also Zooming in to hear the presentations tonight, so they don't know how much fun we're all having socializing here and how delicious the cookies are up front, so please come get them if you haven't had one already. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Cindy Gustafson. I'm the county supervisor for the 5th District, which continues to grow. We gained quite a bit of territory after the last census, so we spread down through Auburn. And so even though I've lived up here 40 years, I do spend a lot of time on the road checking out Interstate 80 road conditions. And so most mornings you can text me and I might have better intel than you'll get from anyone else. Earlier tonight, we had a joint MAC meeting, and I wanted to take a minute and have all the MAC members in the room stand up that are sitting, because we have a number of MAC members here, Barbara, Stacia, Nicole, Rebecca's in the back. They're waving their hands. These folks represent you as volunteers serving their communities, and I just want to thank them publicly in front of all of you for the great work they do. And if you're interested, we're always looking for new MAC members and new opportunities. So thank you all to those MAC members who just went through the dry training of Brown Act. Sorry, Clayton, our county council was presenting that. It was, but it is the law, and we need to make sure our meetings are open to the public. Tonight we have a whole variety of presentations, and I'm just going to try to list all the presenters that you're going to hear from tonight. We are going to try to go through all the presentations and hold questions until we're done with all the presentations. And then obviously we have booths around the room. For those of you on Zoom, I'm sorry you can't participate in those. But for those of you who have come out tonight, thank you. And you can visit with staff and various groups around the room to learn more about what we're doing to serve you in Placer County. So tonight we're going to have presentations by our Sheriff's Department. Lieutenant Paul Long is here. Also, our CEO's office, Lindsay Romack, will be presenting. We also have Ryan Decker from Department of Public Works in the back, Crystal Jacobson with Cedra over here, and Lee Chavez and Steve Buelna, right? Buelna, sorry, I'll get it right, from Cedra as well. And then information booths throughout the room. And so I'm not going to go into all of the staff that are here because I was going to do that and I realized I would be here for the next half hour introducing all the staff that have come out. But most important staff, our Assistant County CEO, Jane Christensen, is in the room. Jane works out of our Auburn office, but is up here tonight to learn more. And in the interim, she's been also overseeing our Cedra department. And then Stephanie Holloway, from our CEO's office up here. Stephanie, for those of you who remember Jennifer Merchant, Stephanie took over for Jennifer Merchant. Some of the rest of us remember Grayson Marshall and Roger Imsdahl and other predecessors, but a really important job in our county that coordinates the departments that are serving Lake Tahoe. So thank you, Stephanie. And I won't go through all the others. But I wanted to talk a bit. Guess I had a thing here. There's all the presentations and information booths. A little bit about the issues that I've been hearing about since taking office. I'm just starting my 3rd year, started in April of 2019. And the issues that we've been trying to deal with in the county and through our office and the issues we've heard about. So obviously housing, affordable housing, which actually we were experiencing prior to COVID dramatic shifts in our housing and concerns about affordable housing for our workforce in our community, but even more so the short-term rental issue, which we've been hard at work on for the last couple of years. And hopefully we've made more progress. We think we are getting it closer to being right. But as you learn in government, you never get it fully right unless you're serving all of the public and hearing from all of you. And so we're here tonight to tell you about what we're doing in that regard, but also to hear from you about those. Forest health, critical issue for all of us. Catastrophic wildfires, probably the other biggest threat that we're concerned about in our communities. And we are addressing that in a number of ways. And I'm happy at my booth to talk to you about these issues. We have a number of private development projects. People continually are asking what's going on here, there, and throughout our area. So we want to talk about that. Also, our transportation projects. I have the pleasure, I guess, it's a pleasure to serve not only for the Board of Supervisors, but I serve on the Tahoe Transportation District Board and on the TRPA Governing Board and on the California Tahoe Conservancy Board. So in wearing all of those hats, I'm often confused, but also dealing with these issues from a number of regional and statewide angles, not just from the county angle. And so it does get confusing, and sometimes I feel like I talk shorthand to many of you when you're asking me a question, because I'm trying to balance all those different perspectives of how I represent you in those aspects. And then finally, on tourism management and stewardship, what we're doing to try to handle the crowds that we see continuing to come throughout the pandemic, and as they continue, as our western end of our county and the Bay Area grow, as Reno grows, sparks. You can't go down to Reno without seeing whole new subdivisions of people that are living within half an hour drive of our destination and enjoying coming to visit us. But how do we deal with those issues? And then finally on economic development and what can we do to have a more sustainable community that can attract higher wage jobs and benefit our community and our workforce. I wanted to make sure, because I hear often people say, we don't know what's going on. There are many, many people serving our community. First off, your 5 elected Board of Supervisors. We also have our Placer County Planning Commission, of which we just appointed Bridget Powers. She lives part-time in Auburn and part-time in Olympic Valley. Bridget has been a longtime community member and is been involved in many issues up here as well as on the western end of the county. So she serves in the seat that Larry Sevison retired from. Our County Parks Commission, many of you might know John Bergman, a longstanding board member at North Tahoe Public Utility District. He represents you on our Placer Parks Commission. We also have 3 municipal advisory councils, of which we pointed out some of the members earlier, 2 design review committees. We work with the Resort Association on our Capital Projects Advisory Committee. We also have the TRPA Advisory Planning Commission. Some of you know Kevin Drake. He serves on that, representing this area for the TRPA. APC is the name of that. And then, of course, many members of our Trucking North Tahoe Transportation Management Association. And those people are hard at work working with our transit services and many of the efforts we're undertaking on both transit and micromass transit now. So we have a lot of people for a small community and a small size of our community serving on all kinds of different committees and boards. And I just urge you, if you're interested, we can get you more information on any of these. And then please sign up for my newsletters. We're trying to get as much information out to you. We can't depend on local media anymore. We don't have that Tahoe World newspaper. Sierra Sun does cover some things when we try to get it to them, but I just urge you that if you can get on the sign-up sheet for the Placer County newsletter and my newsletter, we'll try to cover all the topics that are upcoming meetings. You can sign up for agendas for any of these public meetings. And you see how to sign up on the sheet there. You can shoot us an email if you have any question. And then obviously all of our partners are interested in hearing from you too. Our North Lake Tahoe Resort Association, the Tahoe City Downtown Association, North Tahoe Business Association, our Mountain Housing Council, and all of our special districts. So we're all here to serve you and to work through these various public meetings and issues that we have confronting us. It takes us all working together up here to make things happen and to solve some of the big issues facing our our community. So with that, I am done, and we are going to turn it over to Paul Long, Lieutenant Paul Long, who's going to talk from the Sheriff's Office a little bit more about evacuations. And if you have any questions, please come over and see myself or my staff, and we will make sure you get signed up on any of the lists you want to know more about. So Paul, come on up.
Safe level spot for the water. Thank you, Supervisor Gustafson. Thank you to the MAC members, and thank you to all the staff members that created this. This is no small amount of work. So my name is Paul Long. I'm the lieutenant at the station, local Tahoe station in Burton Creek. Been working up here for about 10 years, and I have a couple topics to handle tonight. 2 comments about my presentation style. I'm like the guy from the commercial. I talk fast, I think fast, I eat fast, and sometimes I really talk fast. So feel free to hold up a hand if I start resembling someone speaking a foreign language. And the other thing is, having offended Microsoft at some point in my past, I labor under a PowerPoint curse. So I am sure something exciting is going to happen. First, a couple of words about July 4th staffing, which was a requested topic to discuss. We generally do staff up for July 4th weekend. This weekend, or for this year, depending on the days of the week it falls on, tends to impact our call volume the most. And so this year we anticipate additional staffing on the 2nd, 3rd, and 4th. Our optimal staffing the rest of the year is 3 deputies and a sergeant. Our minimum staffing is 2 deputies and a sergeant. Given that we cover from Sierra Meadows to the county line at Tahoe, that can be spread pretty thin and way too thin on a holiday weekend. And so we estimate, and it's never more than an estimation, we analyze our arrest patterns, calls for service, and what we've done in the past and how it compares to response times. So we'll have foot patrols running along the river as long as everything staffs. Foot patrols running along the river, foot patrols available for the beach, and then we'll also augment our regular patrol, meaning we'll have more people in patrol cars available to respond. And one of the reasons that this is significant is this costs a fair bit of money, and a lot of this money gets offset by TOT costs. And in this case, in the last year, our offset was around $37,000 of TOT funds that helped offset the costs of providing extra patrol to handle the sheer number of people that arrive here for the July 4th weekend. And I wouldn't want to ever create the impression that we do this alone. Nothing good in law enforcement is done by yourself. And so obviously we have a lot of allied agencies. CHP probation usually puts out a team of as many as 10 people for the weekend. Code enforcement has been a great ally since the short-term rental unit. Before then also, but especially since the short-term rental unit has been created. State parks turns out a fair number of people. We always interface with Truckee PD, and if the Forest Service has law enforcement available, they'll usually staff an officer in the basin. Now onto the topic that I was going to say I love the most, but perhaps the better phrase is I worry the most about, and that is fire evacuation. I'm going to talk about 4 brief things tonight, and those things are sign up for notification and understand how you're going to be notified. Prepare your home and property. That's really more of a fire department function, so I'll say very little about that, but I'll point you in the right direction. Prepare for your evacuation. Once same thing. I will talk more about where you need to go for that information rather than trying to give you a detailed lecture tonight, although we do have some brochures at our back table. And then try to persuade you the importance of listening to us on game day. Placeralert.org. That is the website that allows you to sign up for the service called Placer Alert. Placer Alert is an opt-in service, meaning you must request to receive those notifications by signing up at the website. Can I just ask, show of hands, how many people are signed up for Placer Alert in here? So probably 85% of the room. Would you tell me, how long did it take you to sign up? 5 minutes? Anyone? Yeah, anyone? 1 minute? I feel like I'm auctioning here. But point being, it is not an overly burdensome system. It's fairly easy to sign up. Go to the website. It'll walk you through. It's vitally important. And the reason is that of all the notifications we'll talk about in a minute, this one is the quickest arrow in our quiver. That one of my sergeants is standing back here tonight, one of my patrol sergeants, at 2:30 in the morning. If we need to start evacuating a community, she can make a call for dispatch and have those first round of calls going out within 10 minutes, probably less than that. And that's huge. The other methods, many of which are controlled through federal means, take a little bit longer to go through. We also use it for other public safety notifications. For example, those of you remember the gas leak over in Tahoe Vista a couple months ago. The people who were signed up for Placer Alert knew what was going on. We started getting some questions about why weren't you telling people? Well, we were telling people. We were telling people on our Facebook, and we were telling people on Placer Alert. So we also, God forbid, there's a safety threat in your community, someone running around with a gun, someone that worries us. That's how we're going to let you know that we want you to shelter in place, and also when it's safe to come out again. So please, if you haven't, do sign up for Placer Alert. There are flyers back on our table. This is what I'm going to say the least about. The important thing is to make sure that your home is as unburnable as it can be, and specifically for the topic of embers. And I know Nicole, I think, is Tahoe Fire and Fuels team now as well.
Yeah, I'll be joining them. Community Foundation.
Excellent. So we will be collaborating on some more public education around that. My goal is to have you really tired of hearing about this. But, I'm a cop, not a firefighter, so I'm not going to speak too much about how to make your home unburnable, except to point to the two best resources I know of. The CAL FIRE's readyforwildfire.org. And I don't know why I put spaces in there, but I did. TahoeLivingWithFire.com, which is actually from the Tahoe Fire and Fuels team and is very Tahoe specific, Tahoe centric. But both of them are very good sites on reducing the burnability around your home. Prepare for your evacuation. Now, again, I'm not going to walk you through everything, but I will say there's a few things you need to have ready to go. One is a go bag. So if you're woken up at 3:30 in the morning and you're receiving embers, and you can see embers outside your home, and perhaps you're hearing a high-low siren that we'll talk about in a minute, it is not the time to try to find out more about what's going on. It's the time to leave your house immediately. And what you need to have is a pack, like a duffel bag or a backpack. I keep ours bedside with a headlamp actually zip tied to it, so you can just pull off the headlamp, grab your pack, and go. And that's the notion of a go bag. It has a little bit of clothing, has a little bit of materials, has some medicines if you take any, and some whatever it is that you really need to take with you in the middle of the night if you just have to run. So you don't have to think about it, so you can just get out. Have a plan. The two things that are really important, how will you communicate with your family? Because there's no guarantee that the fire is going to occur when you're all together. And so you need to have some sort of plan about how you're going to get word to your family members and where you're going to meet, what your overall plan is. And that needs to be discussed well in advance. Understand that there's possibilities in the past. Sometimes cell towers have been knocked out. So a lot of times an out of the area communicator is the best way to go. But we will talk about the resources, about where you'll find checklists and all this stuff. And you're going to hear me say this 3 times during this presentation. There is no such thing as a universal evacuation route. It doesn't exist. I can't give you a nice little map saying, here's your home and here's the way to get out. Where's the fire? Where's the wind? Where's the fuel? Those 3 questions guide what's safe to travel and what isn't. We all know that in our basin, in our communities, every community comes down to a left turn or a right turn on a state highway. And so what I want from you is to know 2 ways to get to that turn so well that you can drive them in the middle of the night, having just been woken up with no power, no street lights, and heavy smoke. And that means you better drive them quite a few times and get used to going that way until it becomes that kinetic memory. 2 blocks and then a right. Because that's what we need. We'll give you the left or right on the state highway, but I need you to be able to get to the state highway. No point in having a plan that you don't practice. One of the HOAs in Alpine Meadows is very active about this. We've held some drills over the years. When one of the first times we did it, one of the people discovered that the boxes they had packed and the dog they own wouldn't all fit in the car together with all the family members. Thank goodness they discovered that during a drill. And that just drove home the necessity of practicing it in advance, knowing how you're going to load things into the car, what order you're going to load them in, what's important. From my own years of having been involved in evacuations and or standing guard on evacuations, people often forget medical devices like CPAP. They often forget their medications, and they often forget pet supplies and pet medicines. In my years of standing watch on the areas, trying to keep people from going back in, that's what I often hear people are missing when they've gone to a shelter or left the area. ReadyPlacer.org is our homegrown OES website. It's a very good resource. ReadyForWildfire.org. If you've ever heard the phrase ready, set, go, that is directly from ReadyFromWildfire.org. Both of them are a source of great information and checklists and as much evacuation information as you will ever want. So here's a real bonus for us in an odd way. These catastrophic fires, we know when they're coming. We know when they're likely to happen. Why? Because they happen during red flag weather, and we generally have 24 to 48 hours worth of notice prior to red flag weather occurring. And so red flag weather is declared by the Weather Service. It's a combination of high heat, high winds, and low humidity. And that's often when the power safety shutoffs, here called PSOMs, occur. So we generally know in advance. I don't know how many people have second homes outside the basin. Actually, we'll just turn to the supervisor. I believe about 2/3 of the home are second homes in our area, according to the census. So what a great opportunity. If it's red flag weather and you have a second home that is not inside the basin, do yourself a great favor. Don't live through the PSOM and the stress. Go to your second home outside the basin. You'll also be helping your neighbors because that's one less car evacuating if there is a crisis. I can tell you that other than the fact that I've promised to be here on your worst day, when I retire, when there are red flag weather, I'm going to the beach. So even if I have to camp out of my car. So the other thing is expect power shutoffs. So one of the things that happened during the lake fire was there were some people who were harmed because they were trying to get their car out through the garage door, but the garage door had no power. They didn't know how to, or not physically capable of raising the garage door. So it's a problem you need to solve in advance if you have a garage and you keep your car in your garage and that's your escape vehicle, which is make sure you know how to get it out. And if you can't get it out without power, then I would park it outside. Personally, I pack on red flag days. My family packs everything we can pack that's not living and or so stealable I don't want it outside. We pack it into our car and have it ready to go with our car facing out. And we always make sure our vehicles are fueled before the red flag weather begins, because that's when the PSOMs occur and fuel can be hard to get. Listen to instructions. We will give you 3 types of instruction. One is an evacuation order. That means we believe that there is an immediate threat to your life, and it is a lawful order to get out. And that's the best thing to do is leave, not try to stay. We have people in our own organization who have decided to stay and fight fires around their home, and 2 of them have said that was the worst decision I ever made. They survived, but they were very unhappy that they made that decision. So an evacuation warning means that there's a potential threat. So that means get ready to go. However, if you're going to take more time, you have a lot of animals, you have some mobility challenges, then the evacuation warning you should treat like it's an order. You should just go during the evacuation warning so that you are on the road as quickly as possible. Shelter in place is fairly unlikely to be used during a wildland fire. We do use it during different things. For example, that gas leak was a shelter in place order to people who were in the zone right around the immediate evacuation area. We didn't want them wandering into the middle of the evacuation area. We do use it primarily when there's a threat of violence, for example, someone running around the community that we believe is a threat. And that means go indoors, shut doors, lock doors and windows, stay inside, monitor until you can come out again. Nothing I'm saying is trying to interfere with your good sense. If you are receiving the products of fire, you have heavy smoke, you have ember, you're hearing the crackling of the fire with your own ears, you're in immediate danger, and it is time to go. You don't need me to tell you anything. So activate your emergency evacuation plan and run for the hills. Placer alert. we do have reverse 911. I want to take another moment and thank the supervisor again because one of the reforms that has been put through on the STRs is to require a landline or a configured voice over internet protocol phone inside the short-term rentals. This is huge for us because this allows us to use reverse 911 to notify those tourists, and it also means the 911 calls that come in will have an address associated with them on our 911 system, as opposed to what we frequently get, which is a cell phone with an inexact location and someone saying, I'm in Tahoe Vista. Okay. Social media, our Twitter and Facebook page, not anyone else's social media, our social media. And so trust what you can trust. So public announcements. There's something called the emergency EAS, Emergency Alert System. You've actually heard those commercials, your broadcasters in voluntary cooperation with the FCC. That's it. So you might hear warnings over radios. You might hear warnings over PA systems as we drive around. Pretty low likelihood of aircraft, but never impossible. And then our last arrow in our quiver, but obviously the one under our most immediate control is door-to-door. You can imagine with 2 deputies and a sergeant, door-to-door is not the fastest way to notify people, but it is the surest way to notify people. So our deputies will go to the highest threat area where we need to get people moving the fastest and start trying to let people know that they need to leave. Okay, here we hit the first of our PowerPoint curses. This one I was warned about. The high-low siren. I'll play this back. Okay, so unless you're in London, that's a pretty distinct sound. And that has been an approved siren to use for evacuation reasons through CHP. Now, if you live in multiple counties, and if this is a second home up here, different counties do have different things they want you to do. In our area and with all our partners, high-low means time to go. So high-low is an evacuation order, an immediate evacuation. We will. When our deputies are driving around, we will be using that siren in order to help alert people at a greater distance than going door to door. So if you hear that siren and you see any car with a light bar, that means immediate evacuation for your area. Cell phone notifications. I'm not going to read the slide to you. We're not likely to use them unless there is no other alternative. Here's the bottom line on it. They tend to over-notify and under-notify at the same time. As I've explained to a Mac in the past, on the West Shore, there's no reason anyone would know this unless they've worked in the 911 world. On the West Shore, a lot of those cell phones attach themselves to a cell tower in Kings Beach. So to use the reverse alert system, we have to draw a box that includes the cell tower we're trying to notify. So that gives us, knowing that, if I try to use a reverse cell phone system, that means I either have to draw the circle around Kings Beach, which means I'm now ordering all of Kings Beach to evacuate as well, even though they don't need to, or I'm not notifying everyone on the West Shore. And so the cell phone alerting system sounds good, but it is far from mature. And I was actually just at a regional meeting on Friday, and once again, we all reiterated our commitment to not use that system unless there is no other alternative. I've actually already spoken about this, evacuation routes. I did say I'd say it twice because it's that important. There is no given evacuation route. There can't be. We don't know where the fire is. We don't know where the wind's going. We don't know where the fuels are. And those are the 3 things we need to figure out before we can tell you where it's safe to head. And so what you need to do is know 2 routes to the main roadway so well you can drive them half asleep in the dark with heavy smoke. Don't take forest roads. A couple of reasons. This comes up in some of our rural communities. Hey, what if I just take the 06 or the 0 whatever? Well, number 1 is, do you know where the fire is? Because we're not going to necessarily know where the fire is because it's really hard in red flag weather to get aircraft over a fire to start identifying the location. And so do you know that you're fleeing the fire as opposed to driving in the middle of it? Don't know. Do you know that someone in a Yugo didn't just go in front of you and high center on a 6-inch water bar on that trail, and that trail is now blocked? Don't know. And the third thing is no one's going to know you're there. We're not going to have the personnel to check or rescue people from these back roads. So if you do end up on a forest road trying to do that, no one's coming to help you. So avoid the forest roads, avoid the back roads, stay on the pavement. Enough said. I have heard this comment numerous times over the last 5 or 6 years. No, you're not. For those people who are saying, I'm going to go float on the lake. Yeah, not unless you can face 16-foot wave fronts in 40 or 50 mile an hour winds. No, you're not. You're probably going to have a pretty fatal time in the lake. And once again, no one's going to be able to rescue you or help you. So the lake shore, under certain circumstances, might be a place where you could seek shelter as opposed to being burned over. We'll do our best to communicate with you on that. But going out into the lake would be a fool's errand. Well, I guess it depends on which beach, but I think we're going to, so I totally appreciate it. I'm happy to talk, but I think we're holding questions until all the speakers have gone. So those are the 4 websites. If I had to pick one, I would say readyforwildfire.org. And I guess you can't pick one because you have to sign up for Placer Alert too. And then the other 2 are also very good and filled with local information. Are there any, well, nope. Nope. I did want to say this, though. They asked me to do a pop quiz on the Brown Act, but unfortunately, I'm sorry I left the quiz paperwork behind. But I did bring our flyer. On May 25th, here, we are between 10 a.m. and 2 p.m., there's going to be a senior fair. And so, as you can imagine, I'm going to try to make some evacuation talk during the senior fair too, because it is my fanaticism. But there's going to be a lot of information from a lot of different organizations here. So May 25th. Sorry, I had to put the advertisement in. And with this, I'd like to hand it over to Lindsay.
Thank you, Paul. Hi, everyone. My name is Lindsay Romack, and I'm with the Placer County Executive Office here in Tahoe City. I work for Stephanie Holloway, who you saw earlier, and excited today to talk about Measure A, a proposal to reauthorize the 2% TOT in North Lake Tahoe. This is an educational presentation, and happy to answer questions at the end or when you're walking around if anything else pops up. So first up, what is TOT? Lieutenant Long mentioned TOT helps fund sheriff services on the 4th of July. If you're not familiar with the acronym, which I know many of you are, it stands for Transient Occupancy Tax. So TOT is a tax that is paid by lodging guests. So this is guests that stay in both short-term rentals or hotels here in North Lake Tahoe. And throughout unincorporated Placer County, there is an 8% TOT tax. Here in North Lake Tahoe, there's this additional 2%, which brings us to 10% TOT charged on lodging properties here. So, sorry, it's probably hard to read at the back, but a little bit of history on that additional 2% that is charged in North Lake Tahoe. Back in 1995, the Placer County Board of Supervisors thought that it made sense to implement some additional TOT to help fund important infrastructure projects here in North Lake Tahoe. But at that time, County Council saw some new case law and determined that it was important it went out to voters. So in 1996, voters here in North Lake Tahoe first had the chance to vote on the additional 2%, and it passed. It went back to voters in 2002, back in 2012, and when it went to voters in 2012, there was an end date set of September 30th, 2022, so that brings us to today. If nothing happened, it didn't go back to the voters, it would cease to exist at the end of September, so it is coming to you, the voters, as Measure A on the June 7th, 2022 primary ballot. So the current 2%, as I mentioned, has been in place for a little over 25 years now, and this ensures that visitors help to improve and maintain a lot of the important quality of life services that all of us who live here and everyone who visits here enjoy. Currently, this 2% TOT generates about $4 million annually. Over the past quarter century that it's been in place, it's generated more than $45 million that's gone to local projects and services. And those funds have also been used to leverage additional funding funding in our area to the tune of more than $300 million, again, for projects and services here in North Lake Tahoe. There's a local committee. You heard Supervisor Gustafson mention it earlier. It's the Capital Projects Advisory Committee. We call it CAP. And they are the organization that makes recommendations on projects for funding to the Board of Supervisors. And that committee is made up of 13 local representatives that represent special districts, business associations, ski resorts, and more. And here you probably can't see those boxes very well, but here's just kind of a look at some transformative projects, things like the Tahoe City Ice Rink and Winter Sports Park, completion of additional pieces of the trail, night and seasonal service of TART. You've got the Fanny Bridge project, the Kings Beach Commercial Core, a lot of big projects that have happened here in our community. And so since we knew that the 2% would terminate if it didn't go back out to voters in 2022. Last year, the county worked with a polling company, FM3, to conduct a community survey just to see what folks thought of it, and found that 71% of those who responded to the survey felt that North Lake Tahoe has a great or some need for additional funding. And also in that survey, 81% who surveyed had initial support for the 2% TOT ballot measure. Also in that survey, there were questions about what are the priorities? What would you like to see funding from the 2% go towards? And no surprise, a big one that came to the top was housing, that it's becoming more challenging for folks to be able to afford to live here, who work here, and we need to find more ways to address affordable housing in our area. We also heard that folks would like to see the continuation of TOT funding going to a lot of important projects like bike and trail maintenance, maintaining public parks, reducing traffic congestion, and also reducing trash and litter. So with that information from the survey, the ballot language was created. So, you can see that this addresses a lot of the important issues that we heard from the community, things like workforce housing, traffic congestion, and again reiterates that this is paid by lodging guests. So this is the actual language you are going to see on your ballot. We worked with a consultant to kind of identify the best things to include. And this went to the Board of Supervisors in February, and they approved to put this on the ballot. So again, you will see it on June 7th. One thing I will note is you'll notice it says until ended by voters. There is no set end date on this. This will continue until voters decide that they no longer want to have it in existence. So some important election dates, and it's slightly false. The top one, April 28th, voter guides mailed. That actually happened last Friday, May 6th. So if you haven't gotten yours yet, don't worry. They went out a little bit later than planned, but they should be coming in the mail to you soon. And then actually starting today, the elections team is going to be working to get ballots mailed. And again, that doesn't mean you'll see it tomorrow, but in the next week or so, you should see it. And as a reminder, it is a new California state law that all voters will receive a vote by mail ballot. So everyone in here who's registered to vote will get one. And if you're not registered to vote, May 23rd, that's the last day to register to vote online or by mail. You can still register up until Election Day, but it would be a lot easier if you did it in advance. And then June 7th is Election Day, though I will note Ryan Ronco, our elections official, he noted at a meeting a few weeks ago with the Board of Supervisors that they've seen now about 95% of voters vote before Election Day and 5% of folks vote on Election Day. So while we say June 7th, we know a lot of people are probably going to vote before then. And then last, if you're unsure about your registration, you want to make sure that your ballot's going to the right P.O. box, you can check placercountyelections.gov, and there's a lot of great resources. And that is it for me. So again, I'm happy to answer questions at the end, but now I believe I am passing it off to Department of Public Works and Ryan Decker.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Ryan Decker. I'm a senior civil engineer with the Placer County Department of Public Works in the Tahoe Engineering Division. Today, we're here to present on the status of several key projects and initiatives we're working on here in Eastern Placer County. These projects and initiatives today we'll discuss will include key regional transportation projects and trails, as well as several summer tourism initiatives. In the interest of time, we've cut the list down slightly from where everything that's going on for some of the highlights, the hot objects right now that we're working on. And also, it'll be a quick overview of the status on all of these. Here's our outline for today. So just an overview of the project history, current status, information on the next public input opportunity for these projects, and the anticipated next steps toward implementation. And again, we'll be in the back as well to dig into any of the details. We brought several maps and different exhibits to give you a little bit more than what I'll be able to give you in this time slot. So the first project to talk about today is the SR 89 Fannie Bridge Community Revitalization Project, which is really known as the Fannie Bridge Project. So this project's been envisioned in numerous plans for over 20 years. The intent is to improve traffic circulation, evacuation, safety, transit connections, while closing an active transportation gap in this critical part of Tahoe City. Project scope in its entirety included construction of the new Truckee River Bridge and the bypass, as well as reconstruction and enhancement of the existing Fannie Bridge and a new Y roundabout and pedestrian and bicycle facility improvements. So the project's being delivered in partnership with FHWA, the Federal Highway Administration, with funding through the Federal Lands Access Program and local match through TOT funds, traffic fees, and other state sources. FHWA awarded the initial contract back in 2016 and constructed the new Truckee River Bridge, the bypass section, and the pedestrian bicycle facilities that go along with it. Due to some issues with the contract and some challenges on site, portions of that original scope had to be descoped, and FHWA is pursuing a new contract here this year. They're planning to put it out for advertisement in November and work on construction in May 2023. So as a visual, and we have a little bit easier one to view in the back, you can see the highlighted in yellow is the scope areas that are remaining. And it really is the Tahoe City Y is the focal point, along with the new widened Fannie Bridge with included sidewalks on both sides, bike lanes, and then this new complete streets corridor that connects down the old SR 89. So moving on to the Kings Beach Western Approach. It's a construction of, it's a continuation of the Kings Beach Commercial Core project that went through the commercial core of Kings Beach there in the heart of the downtown area. Project represents an effort to improve this corridor with a more multimodal friendly design, including new sidewalks, bike lanes, reconfiguration of the travel lanes, and the new roundabout intersection at 28 and 267. Project, as far as the status, is cleared environmental design, and a design contract was recently awarded to begin diving into the details of the layout. We anticipate the progress to move to 65% throughout the summer months here, and we'll have multiple opportunities for public input as we move along the process. Concurrently with the development of the design, we'll also be looking into specific right-of-way needs that are part of this project, and we'll be performing those discussions along a parallel track with the design as that gets nailed down. Once the design and permitting is complete, funding still needs to be secured, including federal, state, and local sources, including leveraging the possibility of TOT and traffic fees to be able to advertise an award for construction of this project. We hope to start in 2024. I'm going to switch over to talk more about multi-use trails in our area. So you can see the map on there, and then we can dive into specifics back there. But we have approximately 60 miles of total multi-purpose Class 1 trail envisioned in this portion of Placer County, about 30 miles of that being complete. The trail locations obviously include Truckee River, North Shore of Tahoe, Martis Valley, and a missing section of the Lakeside Trail between Commons Beach and Fannie Bridge. The plan as shown here is to complete what we call the resort triangle, if you hear that term, with a continuous multi-use trail system linking communities and recreational destinations along the North Shore, West Shore, Truckee River, Martis Valley, and the town of Truckee. These trail projects are a Tier 1 or top priority in the county's tourism master plan and are heavily supported by the TOT funding program. These trails are led or funded by multiple jurisdictions and delivered in partnership with multiple jurisdictions around our area, including TTD, TRPA, Tahoe City PUD, North Tahoe PUD, the Conservancy, Olympic Valley, North Star Community Service District, and many others. So I'd like to thank them for their support. To dive into one leg of this resort triangle, the Truckee River Recreation Access Plan is a project to address access to recreational opportunities on public land within this Truckee River corridor between Olympic Valley Road and the town of Truckee, Placer County border. The project will develop a plan for public access to recreation trails, backcountry hiking, climbing, kayaking, fishing, trailhead, parking, and all of the plethora of wonderful activities that are available in this area. Included in the plan will be shared use Class 1 paved trail alignment to connect to the existing trail terminus in Olympic Valley and connect all the way from Tahoe City to the Legacy Trail in Truckee that's being pursued right now by the town. Completion of this plan and draft EIR are currently in progress with an expected release date to the public in winter of 22-23, so this coming winter. Project will then be segmented out and design and construction coming in increments beginning with segment 1, approximately planned for implementation in about 2025 at this point. Next one on the leg is the North Tahoe Shared Use Trail. We're calling the segment that we're discussing today segment 1. North Tahoe Trail consists of the portions of Class 1 multipurpose trail along the entirety of the north shore of Lake Tahoe. It's part of a trail network that is planned to circumnavigate the lake, and portions of this trail are being constructed by numerous partner jurisdictions inside and outside of the county. Segments in Placer County have already been constructed, including the Lakeside Trail through Tahoe City and the recently completed Dollar Creek Trail segment. The North Tahoe Trail will eventually connect the North Tahoe Regional Park to Tahoe City. However, it's being planned and designed in 3 segments at this point. Next planned segment is intended to connect the North Tahoe Regional Park in Tahoe Vista at the existing Pine Drop Trail to Carnelian Bay Avenue. Detailed exhibits of this plan are available in the back. The environmental analysis for this is complete, and a draft CEQA document is planned to go before the board in this June. Design is in progress and expected to complete in time for construction summer 2023. And then additional segments will continue to be developed off of that. The east side section of the Resort Triangle, Martis Valley Trail, it's a connection from the town of Truckee to North Star and further into the Tahoe Basin eventually. Project's being pursued in partnership with the North Star Community Service District, and it's currently constructed from the Placer County town line to the edge of Martis Valley. It's called segment 1B1. It currently ends at the Army Corps boundary, and there's 3 segments actually currently in construction. So the remainder of that 1B segment to the wildlife viewing area, middle of the valley, segment 3A, which gets the rest of the valley alignment over to the golf course, and then the 3B segment that was paved last year and is in final punch list that goes from the golf course up Porcupine Hill and to the North Star Drive roundabout. So these are all expected to be completed this summer. We're hoping sometime late in June or early July. Those will be available for use. The following segment from North Star Drive to the village is currently in design. Hopeful that funding dependent construction can move forward next year. All right, switching a little bit to some other non-trail projects here. A brief update on efforts to deliver the new biomass energy facility at the Cabin Creek site. So with the recent intensifying wildfires, as Lieutenant Long had mentioned, county's working on providing a new 2 megawatt biomass to energy facility. Main goal to reduce green waste, increase the ability to complete the additional fuel reduction projects in the Tahoe area by providing locally controlled outlet, which can also produce renewable energy. County is partnering with the town of Truckee, North Star, Nevada County, and the Tahoe Truckee Community Foundation to devise a plan showing how these facilities are needed to effectively use the biomass for heating and energy with centrally processing at the Eastern Regional Landfill, so along 89 at the Cabin Creek facility. Project status has completed its planning efforts, including feasibility studies, logistics studies, and CEQA review. It's currently working to obtain capital funding, finalize agreements for the sale of the energy, and finalize plans to be able to get it out to bid. Current estimates, funding dependent, are for construction in the 2 to 3 year time frame at this time. All right, so moving away from projects a little bit, switching gears to present some of the initiatives that are underway related to summer tourism. The county's identified several areas of community concern, including parking, trash, and transportation, and we're implementing programs primarily funded by TOT to help address these items. First, we'll talk about is parking management. So as we all know, parking can be an issue during the busy visitation periods of summer. And we're coordinating our resources to better address that need for increased parking enforcement. Working with code compliance over here in the Cedar booth over here to be adding parking hotspots to their patrols during peak periods. And additional information on this will be available at the Cedar booth following. The next is Clean Tahoe. So to talk about trash a little bit, trash management being one of the other issues that have risen over the years. County, in partnership with Washoe County, the Nevada DOT, Town of Truckee, and IVGID, contracted with Clean Tahoe in 2021 to provide enhanced garbage and trash abatement services. The program provides supplemental trash service through routine monitoring of roadside litter, public trash receptacles, assisting in enforcing residential and commercial solid waste ordinances, and upkeep in the heavily used recreation areas. The program's been well received and has been successful, and we plan to continue it into 22-23. Additional information is available in the back, including how to report an issue and contact information for Clean Tahoe. All right, so moving to the Pedestrian Flaggers program, to talk about some transportation here. Really the goal is to help platoon pedestrians to prevent excessive delays caused by the sporadic movement of pedestrians during heavy peak periods. So the presence of the flaggers also was shown and has shown over time to increase the visibility of pedestrians and to improve yield rates for motorists. Program has been in place for a couple seasons now in different locations, and it has been successful in serving its function. TOT funding has been budgeted to continue this service for the upcoming season. It generally runs, you can see the schedule up there, through the height of summer on peak days and for peak events, and you can see the schedule up on the slide. We're happy to talk about specific locations and operations after. All right, and a quick, I want to mention the TART Connect program. We have Jamie Wright in the back, who was instrumental in getting this going. But TART Connect, it's an on-demand shuttle service utilizing smaller transit vehicles and a mobility app, so kind of like on-demand Uber, Lyft kind of thing for micromass transit. It allows you to request rides, and it works really well as a first mile, last mile alternative for those traveling within regions, and then also to connect to the TART fixed line services to provide further connections within the region. Program launched last summer, and use has been increasing. You can see some numbers, if you can read that, increasing as awareness of the program has continued to increase as well. Placer County plans to continue the operation of this service in 22-23, provides a sustainable travel option for residents and visitors, in addition to building upon the large ridership base and all of the work that the mainline TART has been doing for years. Okay, so a lot going on and a lot of details that had to be left out. So I appreciate your time, and we'll be available to discuss these in more detail and dive into the maps and exhibits. So with that, thanks again, and I'll be passing off to Crystal Jacobson, who will be presenting an update from community development.
Thank you, Ryan, and good evening, everyone. I'm Crystal Jacobson. I'm the Deputy Director of the Community Development Resource Agency in Tahoe City. And we are, let me move our slides on here. We're here to talk to you today about various projects that are making their way through our office, so the land development projects. But before we do that, we wanted to talk to you about the environmental and project entitlement process, which we think will help kind of add some context and help educate you on really how long it takes for a project to get through the process and the various steps that are entailed. So we have Lee Chavez, our environmental coordinator with CEDRA here. She's going to talk about the environmental review process. Then she'll toss it to me. I'll walk you through the project entitlement review and how those two things connect. So our goal is to really kind of educate you on that. And then we're going to toss it to Steve here. He's a planner in the Community Development Resource Agency in Tahoe City, and he's going to give you an update on the East Placer project. So I'm going to go ahead and toss it to Lee.
Thanks, Crystal. Hi, everyone. As Crystal said, I'm Lee Chavez. I'm the environmental coordinator for CEDRA, and I am going to talk about environmental review. So generally, environmental review in California refers to review under the California Environmental Quality Act, but everything in Tahoe is a little bit more complicated. So there are other regulatory authorities involved when it comes to Tahoe. So I'll touch on that a little bit later on in the presentation, but for now, I'm going to focus on Placer County's environmental review responsibilities and authority. So a lot of you in the audience might already know about the California Environmental Quality Act, but for those of you who don't, I thought I would cover just a few basics about the regulation. So as its name suggests, the California Environmental Quality Act is a comprehensive environmental review law. It was enacted in 1970, following in the footsteps of the National Environmental Policy Act that the federal government put into play. So the purpose of the California Environmental Quality Act, or CEQA, is really all about public disclosure. It is public disclosure to the general public, and it is also public disclosure to federal and local agencies, particularly those agencies, federal, state, and local, particularly those agencies that will be issuing discretionary permits on a project. So CEQA really supports informed decision-making by our zoning administrator, our planning commissioners, our board of supervisors. It really is intended to help those decision-making bodies understand the potential impacts of the projects they are considering. So just quickly for an understanding of the statute versus the guidelines, the statute's the actual law, but the guidelines take into account case law. So cases that have gone through the courts and have actually provided kind of de facto law. So for all intents and purposes, the guidelines are also law. So what triggers CEQA review? So the lead agency, the public agency like Placer County, has the responsibility for ensuring that a project complies with CEQA. And CEQA really applies to any project a lead agency undertakes, so a public project like Ryan was just talking about, or a project that is a development project, a private project that the lead agency will issue permits on. CEQA does not apply to ministerial permits. So ministerial permits are issued on actions that you're just following a standard. So a good example of that is building permits, where as long as the applicant is following standards, the California Building Code, for example,
there is no discretion that staff has, so there's no environmental review. So just quickly, some key CEQA terms. There's a lot of jargon in CEQA. There are a lot of acronyms in CEQA, but I thought I'd just cover a few key terms. A project under CEQA is the whole of an action. And it's the whole of an action which has the potential to result in a direct physical change in the environment or a reasonably foreseeable indirect physical change. A significant effect means a substantial or potentially substantial adverse change in any of the physical conditions within the area affected by the project. A cumulative effect means two or more individual effects, which, considered together, are compounding in their effect. Thresholds of significance are identifiable quantitative or qualitative performance levels or standards that define whether a project will have an environmental effect. The CEQA baseline is generally the existing conditions at the time the lead agency decides to move forward with a project's impacts. And baseline can be a little complicated. I'm happy to talk about any of these terms after the presentations are done, because there is certainly more to that. And then an initial study is the tool we use to determine what level of environmental review is warranted for a given project. And then two types of environmental review that you've potentially heard about: negative declaration or a mitigated negative declaration is used when the lead agency finds there's no substantial evidence that there'll be a significant impact, whereas an environmental impact report is used when the lead agency finds that there is substantial evidence that a project may have a significant effect. So you can't see this. The whole point of this was to show you how complicated the process is. And just to be clear, this is a greatly simplified flowchart. So we, Placer County, and really any lead agency, generally operates in the lead agency role. On the far left-hand side, there's also a responsible agency role, which we sometimes operate in, but for all intents and purposes, we are the lead agency, and we clear negative declarations or environmental impact reports. And what I wanted to really show with this flowchart is some opportunities for you to be involved in the process. So that first opportunity is at the notice of preparation stage. And actually, I have these handouts so that you can actually go over and take a look at them. But the notice of preparation is the stage at which staff is looking for input from the public and from responsible agencies who will be issuing discretionary permits. We want to know, we have an idea going in what the potential impacts may be, but we really want to hear from the interested public, what is it that concerns you about a given project? Now, keep in mind, the CEQA process, it's all about environmental impacts. So we're not talking about the merits of the project and whether you like the idea of the project or not at this point. This is all about, are you analyzing the impacts of the project? So another opportunity number 2 is at the notice of availability stage, and that is when we're actually putting a draft document on the street. Again, I know it's hard to see, but that is an official 45-day formal opportunity. So the document's out, and we want to see what comments the public or, again, interested agencies have on the environmental analysis. And then the third opportunity is at the actual hearing body. When the hearing is occurring where the project is being considered, it's an opportunity where you can raise comments actually at the hearing. It's not a formal comment period in the same way that it is on the draft, but it's an opportunity to bring up issues. So I mentioned earlier that in Tahoe, things are a bit more complicated. And, this isn't exclusive to Tahoe. There are plenty of projects that have federal funding as well. But in Tahoe, there's definitely a chance for layered environmental review because we've got the National Environmental Policy Act, so a project that has federal funding or a federal discretionary action often has NEPA. It's called National Environmental Policy Act is NEPA. Often has a NEPA EIS or finding of no significant impact, kind of corollary to the CEQA process. And then there's also the Tahoe Regional Planning Agency review. And Tahoe, TRPA, Tahoe Regional Planning Agency, has their own regional compact and code of ordinances that they implement. So there is a chance for one project to have joint environmental review through the county, through whatever federal agency is issuing their NEPA document, and through TRPA. So you might have a document that has 3 layers of review. So joining those documents together is actually beneficial. So just to give you a sense of Placer County's process, we have what we call the Environmental Review Committee. It's comprised of subject matter experts in a number of divisions and departments within the county. And we, the Environmental Review Committee actually does prepare negative declarations and mitigated negative declarations in-house. EIRs, on the other hand, are always prepared by CEQA consultants. They are a heavier lift, and they tend to, we tend to farm them out to EIR consultants. And we have a list of pre-qualified firms. So the county actually goes through a really rigorous process of interviewing consultants and pre-qualifying them. And then applicants can go through and choose whichever one of those EIR consultants off the list they prefer. So I talked about this a bit with the slide that was so crazy and the 3 opportunities, but I will reiterate just so you have an idea of those opportunities again. So first opportunity is at the notice of preparation when we're kicking off the environmental review and we want to hear what issues interest you. Then there's the review and comment of the draft document. That's actually a formal review period, 45-day review period, and it's initiated by a notice of availability. You can attend the public comment period. That generally, well, it doesn't generally occur. Placer County always has public hearings to accept comments, and that occurs during the 45-day public review period. And then at the final document, we always put the document out on the street 10 days in advance, a minimum of 10 days before the hearing body takes action. And I've asterisked this because it's not a formal public comment period, but the governing body does receive those comments, and the staff generally responds to comments with the staff report in an informal fashion. And then environmental coordination services, that's the division, that's my division. We maintain interested parties lists. So our lists are extensive. We would really rather over-notify than under-notify. We have CEQA-specific lists if you want to know about every CEQA action. And then we also have project-specific lists if you want to know about specific projects. So we have a CEQA all projects list. We have a Forest Hill community all projects list. We have a Tahoe area all projects list. And then you can also get yourself on project-specific lists. So I will also have at the table this set of contacts. So if you are interested in getting on any or all of these lists, you can notify any of the 3 of us in Environmental Coordination Services. And then just another couple of resources to be aware of. We have an active projects list, a CEQA active projects list, and it's available on the Environmental Coordination Services page of the website. And we've got it alphabetized, and we also have it by supervisor district, so it's easy to find the project you're looking for. And then we also publish all documents, notices of preparation, notices of availability, and all final CEQA documents are available on the website. So that is it for me, and I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Crystal. She's going to talk about the project entitlement process.
Thank you, Lee. So the project review process does kind of go hand in hand with the environmental review process. So we prepared this graphic, and these are actually available over on the table if you want to take a look. But it really illustrates the land development process, which includes both environmental review and project review. It shows the steps that a project proposal goes through, starting with what we call the pre-development pre-development application, which is right here. And so this blue line right here represents projects that go through MAC review. So they would go through and have one's check-in at the MAC as an informational update item to introduce the MAC to a project that has been submitted to us. And then a little bit later on when the project is about to go to hearing. But, and I'll touch a little bit more on which projects go that route or, have to go through the MAC review and which don't. But all projects come in and they begin with, all major projects, I should say, begin with this pre-development application. Any project that's going through CEQA would come in and have a pre-development application. And then they would come in, they might go away for a few months and start to pull their project together a little more, and then they come in with a formal application, and they go through a project application review. This is done by county staff. We frequently do it in coordination with outside agencies, including the TRPA for projects that are in the Tahoe Basin. And we check it for completeness. If it's not complete, they kind of have to go back through and do some plan revisions, maybe provide us with additional information before they could proceed. If it is complete, the next step is for us and planners, and Steve will kind of talk about this when he gets into talking about specific projects, but they'll go through environmental review. And so the first step is to check to see whether or not the project is exempt from CEQA. If it's exempt, it kind of goes over this path right. Sorry. Uh-oh, did I lose I lost my. Anyway, it goes the bottom dotted green line there. It goes to the prepare recommendation. So basically, you've reviewed the project, you've met with all the different county departments and outside agencies, and you prep the project for hearing. So you prepare a recommendation, a staff report, publish legal notices, and it goes. Oh, thank you. And then it would go on to a public hearing. Sometimes when that happens and we don't have to prepare an environmental document, you might still go the MAC route if it's a major project. But again, a project will come in and they'll go to the MAC initially as an informational item, and then right before a public hearing, the MAC weighs in and provides a recommendation to either our planning commission and or board of supervisors. If a project if it is subject to CEQA, Lee talked all about that, but there are two different types of documents that can be prepared here. So if we go through this route, it goes into the CEQA, we prepare the documents. That could take a lot of time. For the mitigated neg decks and the negative declarations that Lee talked about, those typically take about 4 to 6 months or so. But if you get into a project that requires a larger environmental document like an EIR, that could take months and months. I mean, it really could be anywhere from 12 to 18 months. And so a lot of folks, projects will kind of go quiet for a while. And the reason for that is that our staff are really focusing on the preparation of these documents. It takes a substantial effort to prepare, particularly an EIR. But once the EIR is complete, then we get into this phase here. And again, keep in mind too, during this EIR process, you will have those opportunities for public comment like Lee talked about. So not only do you have an opportunity, at the MAC, the various different MACs and public hearings, you're also going to have these opportunities to comment on the environmental document as that is being prepared. And then again, once you get done with preparation of the document, you get to this phase in here and you prepare recommendations, staff report, other hearing materials, publish the legal notices, and then on to the public hearings. And there's a number of different types of public hearings. I'm going to touch on those here in just a second. So for public meetings and hearings, this is the process again for CEDRA projects. So these are the projects that come through our shop. We have the design review committees. I know Supervisor Gustafson touched on this a little earlier. We've got 2 up here in the Tahoe area. They provide a public forum for the community to weigh in on design review proposals, and they advise the county on design review proposals, and we prepare a design review agreement for those. We also have the MACs, the Municipal Advisory Councils. Again, there are 3 up here in the Tahoe area, as there's another opportunity to hear about the projects that are coming before the board or the Planning Commission. We also have the Zoning Administrator and Parcel Review Committee. The Zoning Administrator is a one-hearing body. It's a one-hearing officer, and same with the Parcel Review Committee, and they weigh in on mostly the kind of minor project applications, which I'll touch on here in a second. And then we have our Planning Commission and our Board of Supervisors. So the Zoning Administrator and Parcel Review Committee are required for most minor project proposals. The decisions of the Zoning Administrator can be appealed to the Planning Commission, and then the Planning Commission is required for most major project proposals or appeals. And then decisions of the Planning Commission can be appealed to the Board of Supervisors. The Board of Supervisors is required for all rezones, specific plan, general plan amendments, so kind of those larger projects that come through our process or through our shop, and as well as appeals. So for pre-development applications, I just wanted to touch on this really quick. This is really, again, that first step in land development process. They're mandatory requirement for all major project entitlements. And then anything undergoing CEQA. A lot of times folks will come in and request, they'll submit a pre-development application and really just want to come in and talk to us about the process, and anybody can do it. But it is a formal application that you submit, and people come in with really kind of a project concept and talk to us about what's required to get through the process. But the projects that are required to go through this are conditional use permits, major subdivisions, rezones, specific plans and master plans, and general plan amendments. So really they're held to review and discuss the entitlement and environmental review process that we're talking about tonight here. We'll tell them exactly what's going to be required of them. And then I think it's important to note that it may take months before a formal application is submitted following the pre-development meeting. Sometimes people come in and they have a pre-development, they submit an application, they have a pre-development meeting, and maybe they just decide not to move forward with their project because they feel they're going to incur too much cost or something like that. So it's really a process that folks can do a check to see whether or not they want to continue forward. In some cases, they'll come in for a pre-development meeting, they'll do the application and meet with us, and maybe we won't see them again as a formal application for 6 to 9 months or longer. That does happen. So really quick, I just want to touch on the minor project applications. These are just some of them. We do have others that are very minor in nature, things like a tree permit or a sign permit, things like that. But I just want to touch on these. Administrative approvals and administrative review permits. These are project entitlements that authorize a proposed special land use. They typically are exempt from CEQA, so they don't have to go through that rigorous CEQA process that Lee talked about, and take about 60 days or so to process. Notices are provided to neighboring properties for these. The zoning administrator hearings are required for the administrative review permits, but not administrative approvals unless there's an appeal. Design review, this is a process to review project site and building design for compliance with design standards, typically exempt from CEQA, and it takes about 60 to 90 days or so to process. Design review applications are presented to the Tahoe Basin and Olympic Valley Design Review Committees or the zoning administrator if they're outside of those boundaries for consideration, and then we prepare a design review agreement with the applicant. Variances, this is a request for a deviation from a certain land use zoning requirement, so say a development standard like a side setback or something like that. They're typically exempt from CEQA and take about 60 days or so to process. You may hear about them because we do notices to neighboring property owners, and then they go before the zoning administrator for hearing. Minor use permits are entitlement requests for conditional land use, not allowed by right. It may require CEQA analysis and can take months to process. Some of them don't require CEQA, but some of them do. Notices are provided to neighboring property owners, and the zoning administrator has a hearing on minor use permits. Minor land divisions is a request to divide a property and create less than 5 parcels. It does require CEQA analysis and can take a few months to prepare, typically about 4 to 6 or so. Notices are provided to neighboring property owners, and it goes before the parcel review committee for a hearing. Moving on to the major project applications. We've got the first here is a conditional use permit. Major subdivisions, rezones, general plan amendments, and specific plans. And these all are substantial in nature in terms of the level of review that it takes. Conditional use permits go before the Planning Commission. And again, these are the types of projects that would go before the MAC for consideration. So again, they would come to the MAC early on in the process and as an informational item, and then they would go before the MAC for a recommendation to the Planning Commission or to the board. Properties around the project proposal would be noticed, and again, typically require environmental review. Sometimes, if it's a larger project, it might even require an EIR. Major subdivisions, this is anything above 5 parcels that somebody's wanting to create. Same thing here, it would go before the Planning Commission and requires noticing, and typically would require environmental review, oftentimes an EIR, depending upon the size of the subdivision. Rezones, this would go before the Planning Commission for a recommendation to the board. So it goes to the Planning Commission and to the board. It also requires environmental review, typically an EIR for a rezone. And obviously lots of noticing on rezones to the property owners, lots of touch points with the public and having public hearings and public meetings, that sort of thing. Rezones, general plan amendments, all of these last 3 that you see here on the list would go before the MAC a couple of times. Sometimes even the applicants that are preparing those types of plans even have their own, public meetings outside of the county meetings. So those are all types of projects that you would see at the MACs and you would hear about a lot in your community, and they typically take a long time to process. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Steve to touch on some of the projects that are making their way through the county right now.
Thanks, Crystal. Good evening. I'm Steve Bielna, a supervising planner in the Tahoe City office here, and I'm just going to kind of walk you through some of our more prominent projects in the area that are currently underway. Starting with the project map. I know this will be a little difficult to see on the screen here, but we do have a large printout and handouts as well if you want to take those. Also, each one of the projects that I'm going to touch on also has a handout on the table there. So anything that I missed in the presentation, feel free to come over and chat with me after the presentation. So I'm just going to kind of walk through geographically through the area and, like I said, hit the high points on some of the projects in the area. You'll see on this project map, the projects are kind of identified in what stage of review that they're in. We do have the projects that are currently under review, as well as the projects that are shown in red on the map. There are actually projects that have been approved, and we're going through the implementation phase. And in a nutshell, the implementation phase takes a look at the conditions of approval for the project that have been approved, and when the project comes in and they're getting ready to actually break ground and develop to make sure that it meets all of the conditions of those projects. So starting in the Martinez Valley area, one of the projects, Martinez Valley Superior Self-Storage. This is a project out near the airport. It's just under 68,000 square feet in area, and it is a multi-use facility. It's comprised of indoor storage units, a co-working office space, and an on-site caretaker's unit. This particular project would require a minor use permit, one of the items that Crystal had mentioned earlier. It also requires a design site review. Where this project is at in the timeline is that the mitigated negative declaration, so the environmental document that has identified potentially significant impacts, but also includes the mitigation measures to reduce that to less than significant level. That document has been prepared, and the comment period did end April 12th of the previous month. We do anticipate that this project will be considered before the zoning administrator for the minor use permit for the office space, as well as the design review to evaluate the design elements, the aesthetics of the project early in the summer. Moving over to the North Star area, the Ritz Carlton project, or Ritz Carlton residences. So this is one of those projects that that the North Star Highlands project was previously approved. So for essentially more of an overall master plan for the North Star area. This is a project level review that we just received the application for, which does include 18 townhome units located just east of the existing Ritz Hotel building. As I mentioned, the environmental questionnaire, so that initial phase of the environmental review that Lee touched on was just submitted last month, and we're currently in the process of distributing that to the various departments for comment, and there'll be some back and forth with that. We do anticipate that this project will require a modification of the conditional use permit, and likely will involve an addendum to the previous environmental impact report that was prepared for the North Star Highlands project. Now, moving over to the lake, we'll start in the Tahoe Vista and Kings Beach area. Alpine View Estates, this is also a project that was previously approved. However, the applicant is looking to make some modifications or changes to the project. This project is a 20 timeshare unit, or it includes 20 timeshare units spread over 10 separate buildings, so they're all duplexes, caretaker's unit, and a 4-unit multifamily achievable housing structure. As I mentioned, they are seeking to modify the previous approval that they had, so we're in the process of reviewing that as we speak. And what we're anticipating is that we'd be processing an addendum, essentially a modification to the mitigated negative declaration that was prepared for the previous project approval. This would be heard before the Planning Commission, and we're anticipating that in the summer of this year. Now moving over to Kings Beach, 39 North. This is a project that, if any of you have been following the projects in the region, this had been the Kings Beach Center project. This project proposes 153 hotel rooms, underground parking, and 10,000 square feet of retail on the ground floor. Also included in the project, as you can sort of see from the lower left, which is the site plan, there's several detached structures containing 36 market rate townhomes. Look to the lower right is an aerial which identifies that this project is split. So there's an eastern parcel as well, which will contain 74 deed restricted workforce housing units. This project, just to help orient you on where it is in the review timeline, this project will require a conditional use permit and design site review, and has undergone the first round of comments on that initial environmental questionnaire submittal. The level of environmental review required for this project is still under consideration by both Placer County and the Tahoe Regional Planning Agency. Moving on to our next Kings Beach project, Kings Beach Mixed Use Redevelopment Project. This project is proposing 16 tourist accommodation units, 11 market rate multifamily dwelling units, and approximately 1,400 square feet of professional office on the ground floor level, essentially to the right, lower right-hand side that you'll see on that rendering shown there. As far as where this project is in the timeline, staff is reviewing the applicant's second submittal on the environmental questionnaire, and again, the level of environmental review is currently being determined by both Placer County and Tahoe Regional Planning Agency. We're likely envisioning that this will either involve a mitigated negative declaration or perhaps a conformity review checklist, which is a way to identify that all of the impacts that were identified when we prepared the Tahoe Basin Area Plan, that the project impacts have been properly evaluated for this project as well. We'll now move over to Tahoe City and the Dollar Creek Crossing project. So this is a county-led housing project that would include up to 90 rental units and up to 60 for-sale housing units. This project is currently in the project planning phase, and once that phase has been completed, we can anticipate a formal submittal from the applicant team. And similar to other projects that I've been speaking to, the level of environmental review will be determined as part of that review process. I will note, however, that this will require a conditional use permit, which means it will be considered by the Planning Commission and will have an appearance before the North Tahoe Regional Advisory Council prior to the Planning Commission hearing. Also in the Tahoe City area is the Boatworks redevelopment project. This project proposal is for 80 to 85 hotel units containing items that we typically will see in the hotel projects, which are conference facilities, associated amenities such as pool, restaurants, and spa. It'll also contain 31 residential condominium units and 8,000 square feet of commercial retail space that will actually be on the ground floor facing the North Lake Tahoe, or North Lake Boulevard, sorry. As far as the timeline on this project, the applicant has elected to pursue a joint environmental impact statement, that's the TRPA portion, and environmental impact report, which is the county's portion. Both agencies are reviewing the initial submittal on the environmental questionnaire. A scope of work has been completed and the contract is underway on that. Rounding around the lake slightly further. Thought I was going to have Paul Long's problem there for a second, but apparently not. I spoke earlier about projects that are in the implementation phase, meaning there's been an approval and we're working through the bringing that project forward to construction. Homewood's a good example of this. The Homewood Mountain Resort Master Plan was actually approved in 2011. There was some litigation and a settlement agreement. However, the first phase of development, the applicant team came forward, which was on Lot 3 of their development, which is a 7 residential units located at the corner of Fawn and Sacramento Street. That project, they came in, portions of the project were evaluated in 2011. However, something like design review was not reviewed at that time. So they came in for an application for design review. We reviewed that and issued an approval on that design review late last year, and they are anticipating construction of those 7 units in this coming summer. Jumping back out of the basin into Alpa and Meadows, White Wolf Subdivision. This is a project proposal for 38 residential or single-family residential lots and 14 guest units, as well as 6 employee housing units out in the Alpine Meadows area. Scoping meeting or notice of preparation was held in November of 2019, and as was mentioned earlier about that lag period in the environmental document, we are currently preparing the draft environmental impact report for that project. If all goes well, we're anticipating a project hearing, which will be before the Planning Commission in spring of 2023 of next year. Jumping over the ridge into the Olympic Valley area, We have the Granite View condominiums. This is a project proposal for 52 condo hotel units with a parking structure. And as I mentioned, with a lot of the hotel projects moving forward, there are amenities included with that as well. This particular hotel project is also proposing a tea house, a pool, hot tubs, some fire pits, as well as a yoga hut and some platforms that would be located in the project. This project is also somewhat unique in that the connection to the project is going to require a roadway connection to Chamonix Place. All of this is being evaluated as part of the environmental impact report that's going to be prepared. And as far as that timeline, this project is falling right in the, we have scheduled a notice of preparation scoping meeting for this coming Thursday on the project. The snow, towards the entrance of the valley, we have the Snow Sports Museum and Community Cultural Center. This is a 20,000 square foot, two-story building that includes cultural community center, event space, visitor center, and a cafe, museum, and shop. This project will require a general plan amendment and rezone, which Crystal had mentioned. That means that this project will ultimately be deliberated on by the Board of Supervisors. It also contains a conditional use permit, parcel map, and design review. As part of the environmental impact report that's being prepared, the notice of preparation hearing has already been conducted, and that the comment period on the notice of preparation ended on April 18th. So this project is just beginning that preparation of the draft environmental impact report for the project. Last but not least, the Sierra Family Meadows Plan Development. This is a project proposal to develop the former Polson Estate property, which is a 31-acre parcel in the Olympic Valley. The project proposal is to divide that parcel into 10 residential or single-family residential parcels. Because this is essentially a subdivision and conditional use permit, this will be considered by the Planning Commission for that project. This project was just submitted, so we're really just in the initial phases of review. So the time estimates for when it will be going to hearing will be forthcoming. However, because it will be going to the Planning Commission, you can anticipate that this will be brought forward to the Olympic Valley Municipal Advisory Council and ultimately brought forward to the Planning Commission for review and for deliberation on a decision. So with that, I'll go ahead and turn it over. Thank you. Mm-hmm.
So I've had a few requests that this has gone a little long and not to do questions for the whole group because many of you are going to have different questions. We've got a phenomenal staff in the back and all around the sides that are here to answer any of your questions on specific projects. So I hope that works for everybody. Please join me in thanking all the staff that have come together tonight to report to you what they're doing, and you can see how many things are happening right now. There's a lot going on in our community. There's a lot of interest in reinvesting in our region and creating new investments in our region. And so it's really important you sign up for these websites, you check the websites and stay informed, and we'll do our best. Please sign up for the newsletter so that I can help keep you informed as well. So thanks again, and please go to the booths and ask your questions. Thank you.